Super broken landing spots, slow movement, and a whole new loophole. This season, everyone is really struggling to adapt to the brand new meta with all the changes. So I'm going to expose absolutely everything you need to know so you can get back to dropping 20 plus kill get. Starting off with the weapons this season. The weapon base is like nothing we've ever seen before. We now have attachments that completely change the way our weapons work. It could turn a really bad weapon into a pretty good one very quickly. But before I go into attachments, let's break down the best weapons to take. First up, ARs. In all honesty, I don't really think any of the ARs are that broken this season. Even with the attachments and stuff on them, they don't seem that great. But from what I have used so far, the Striker AR or the Scar looking gun doesn't seem that great. The best AR in my opinion has definitely got to be the Nemesis AR. The gold variation of it can actually be very good once you've got all the different attachments on it, as it has little to no recoil. The only real downside with it though is how bad it is when it comes to long range. I'd probably just avoid taking any AR in general really, unless you've got a specific playstyle that works with it. Now moving on to the shotguns. For me, there is one clear winner that is 1,000 times better than any other shotgun in the game, and this is the hammer pump. It's more of a reworked version of the pump so they can add attachments on it, but overall it feels quite nice. My best advice for using the shotgun is just shoot and build. Because of the time it takes between firing shots, I've seen so many people trying to use this pump like the pump last season, and it's much slower in terms of time it takes when shooting your shots. So running and gunning with it is definitely a death trap, especially when the frenzy's around. But in terms of damage, this is so clear of the frenzy auto. The frenzy just sort of reminds me of a mix between attack and a drum shotgun, and overall it's just not very consistent unless you can literally just get into someone's face with it. One minute you seem to be hitting like really good damage, like 80-90 damage shot. The next minute it's hitting like 20 damage. So this is the exact same. Even with the mythic one as well, it just doesn't really seem that great. So in general, I'd probably just avoid that shotgun. If you do have it off spawn though, my best advice is just hold left click and pray and spray and pray like a drum shotgun. Now moving over to the SMGs. This season, they are a little bit broken. We have a few different SMGs in the game. We have the run and gun SMG. This is a really great gun off spawn. It's got a really small crosshair, so it's made to literally just run at your opponent. It's also good to ADS with as well, as someone like maybe 1 to 2 tiles away. Because of that small crosshair, it's like always having that first shot accuracy. The only real problem with the SMG though is its lack of ammo. You have to have really good aim to use this. If you have insane SMG aim, this is an amazing option for you, but if not, and especially for mid game as well, the Hyper SMG is such a good shout. It's probably the better option overall, has a bit more ammo in it than the run and gun one, especially if you can get the extra ammo clip on it, and overall it just feels really nice to use. So that's definitely going to be my personal first choice this season. Then finally we have the burst SMG thing, which I'm not really a big fan of the recoil on that gun, so I'd probably just avoid it. Now, moving on to the weapons I think should replace your AR this season, and that is snipers. The snipers in general feel really nice. There's not much recoil on the gun, especially with a 4x scope on the sniper. It feels like having a hunting rifle with a bolt action snipe on it, and there's literally no drop off on the snipers. And the best sniper in the game, in my personal opinion at least, is the Reaper. You want to put these settings on that I put on mine, and trust me, you'll be hitting some really nasty snipes. So that probably makes you ask the question, what is the best, most ideal loadout to have this season? First of all, in your first slot, I definitely recommend having that sniper over the AR. Just like I explained a second ago, it's gonna be so much better than having an AR this season. Then you want the pump shotgun. The frenzy and the other ones are just so poor, just ignore them all. I'd rather have a green pump this season than have a gold frenzy, and I'm not even joking, the difference in damage is just massive. The green hammer pump is doing 89 to the body, and a blue frenzy literally does 68. Then you want some sort of spray weapon in your third slot. I would recommend, especially for mid game, the Hyper SMG with the optic scope on it as well. That literally feels really nice with no recoil, especially if you can get the increased magazine capacity on it. That will feel super nice to use. If you want an AR though, and it works for your playstyle, the Nemesis AR in gold is also a really good weapon at spraying at builds, especially with the optic. Again, I actually do kind of like the Nemesis AR as much as I do hate the ARs this season, but overall though, in general, I would much prefer to have an SMG. Then for your last 2 slots, you preferably really just want 2 sets of meds. I'm opting more for the big pots and especially the medkits, not even joking, with a new medkit buff as well this season. Like, the medkits are just super good, with the medallions being a thing as well, helping regenerate your shield. It just makes the medkits even better. Now we got that out the way, let's go into the actual game and start us off with the one and only off spawn. You're probably wondering, where's the best place for me to land this season? And without a doubt, you need to ensure you're landing at a POI that has the brand new medallions at them. The medallions are super meta this season, and they're very cool to have in the game, but are just slightly a little bit overpowered. I mean, the fact that your health just regenerates up with some of them as well is such a cool concept. It makes players without it a massive disadvantage. So you need to make sure you're landing at one of these POIs with one of the medallions. I recommend you go test them all out. They're all pinged on the map, and find out which one is best for you and which spot you like. I personally love landing at Snooty, but find the one that works best for you. Off spawn, you probably realise you seem to be dropping quite short everywhere, and a lot of the time you're probably raging at yourself thinking, no way, I've gotten really short drop again. But that's actually because Epic Games made you open your glider much lower to the ground. All you need to do when you're landing is ping wherever you'd usually open up your glider in Fortnite, then just go slightly in front, and most of the time you're gonna have a decent drop. But we can also actually benefit off this when it comes to living off spawn. To increase our chances of surviving, while everyone is adapting to the new glider changes at least, most players are going to be landing super short, meaning they're landing at the front side of the POI, the closest buildings to the battle bus. So open your glider a little earlier than you usually would, and land at the furthest side back to the place you're landing. So this is the furthest side away from the battle bus, so the back end of the POI, and you will most of the time have the whole of the backside uncon. If not, at least you'll lower the amount of players that are going to be dropping with you, making it easier to live off spawn. Because off spawn tends to be very RNG this season with all the new attachments and stuff, so this is a great way to counter that. Fighting off spawn is definitely a bit different to what we used to, so the amount of mats you get seem to be a lot lower for some reason, especially with the decreased chest spawn as well. You need to make sure, in builds at least, you are using your mats more cautiously than you did in other seasons, especially early on, so you don't die by running out of mats. Try to learn to play off spawn by only placing builds that you need and when you need them, rather than just spamming them down like what most of us are used to. Now, moving on to mid-game, in terms of the way we move around right now, I definitely think Epic Games will make a change to the movement to stop it feeling so clunky and weird. For now, at least, the mid-game fights are really weird. If you find yourself on the defensive in a fight without any tactical sprint, it's near enough impossible to win. With the slower normal run speed, that it seems more of a walk than a run. You need to avoid hopping on people's walls. Instead, you need to make sure you're taking people's cones and floors if they box up, and sort of try and force them into a mistake, especially because piece control has had a massive nerf this season, and it seems much harder to piece people up than it normally is. If you can force a cone into someone's box, then dropping on the wall is not too bad of a shout. You just need to make sure you're doing it at the right time and playing a lot slower than you did before. I've personally been very careful with build fights because a lot of the time they are really dragging out this season, making you very vulnerable to third parties. But with a smaller map and the movement being so much slower, you just need to be careful of how long your fights are dragging on. My best advice really is to use the high fire rate of the SMGs to your advantage. Try and speed the mid-game fights up and force your players into making their main mistakes. Especially if you find yourself in a build fight, you want to make sure you're fully abusing that tac sprint as much as you can. This is going to be your best friend in build fights, and this is the one thing that makes it so hard to go for high ground this season. If you are a player on high ground and someone starts building up, make sure to just spray at their builds, because it's literally impossible for someone to take height off you on the super slow walk speed if they are not using the tac sprint. To make sure you're using them SMGs and you're stopping your opponent from tac sprinting as much as you can. Anyways, that's going to be it for this video. If you did enjoy, smash the like button and subscribe for more tips and tricks videos this season.